Hello, everyone. This is Kerry Hefner. I'm the area horticulturist for Washita Parish, Union Parish, and Morehouse Parish. And in a previous presentation, I talked a little bit about heirloom apples that I'm experimenting with. And I thought what I would do today is talk about, give you some updates on some apple trees, some old apple trees we've located here in the Northeast region, and then talk about those a little bit, and then go into the watermelon project that we've been working on for the last year. So we'll just start with looking at some of these older these some of these heirloom apples here. By the way, that's called a horse apple. And here in Louisiana, a horse apple can also mean Osage orange or Bodoc, however that is pronounced, which is in the mulberry family. But there actually is an old cooking apple, summer apple, that is a true apple that is called the horse apple. It was probably the most common apple um, grown in the southern United States at one point, and we're not really sure about the year of origin. It predates 1800, almost certainly. But at one point, that cooking apple, that horse apple, was the most commonly grown apple in the South. So I'm trialing this to see how it performs here in Louisiana. So far, so good. The trees are flowering right now, so we'll see what kind of fruit set we get. Um, this is an apple we found last year on July 31st in Union Parish in the Sardis area. I had received a call from a gentleman who wanted me to come up and look at a purple hull pea his family has always grown. And we were walking out to his pea patch, and I passed this apple tree and stopped there. This really became kind of the focus of attention. Um, and I don't know what this is. I'm just calling it the Sayers apple because that's the name of the family whose property it's on. It's a summer red apple, a small apple. So my hunch is that this is really a crab apple. I just don't know what variety. But that's what the fruit looked like on July 31st of last year. The tree, they had already picked all the fruit off. So it comes in, fruits, and gets out of town pretty quickly, which is rare for a red apple. You hear about summer apples usually being green or yellow. And you can see the tree looks a little rough by this point. Hot weather and humid weather has kicked in. And so we did come back during the winter to collect scions, and it had set a second crop of fruit after the hurricanes. It lost all its leaves, flowered again, and then set some small fruit. They, of course, did not mature because when fall came around and it was time to drop the second set of leaves, it dropped these fruit. So these fruit never had a chance to mature. They're not as big as this apple right here. Um, but this is what the tree looked like in January. And we tried to collect some scions off the tree. In fact, we did. And um, tried to mail them to the person who I buy custom grafted apple trees from, and they never got there. They were lost in the mail. So you'll notice some sprouts coming out at the bottom of the tree. My first question to the property owner, of course, is this a grafted tree? He assured me it was not. So we just dug some fruits, some sprouts out from around the tree, and I have potted a couple of those up, and they are leafing out this spring. So we're going to grow this out, try for scions next winter. Only we'll use FedEx or UPS, not the Postal Service, and overnight them this time to someone who specializes in custom grafted apple trees and see how they do. I don't know what this is. I don't have any idea what the name of this apple is. We did a little homework on the family, and it's possible that this tree originated, not this tree, but the parent tree. This is from a sprout from the parent tree, originated somewhere in Alabama. So we're still sort of working on that story. And then not too many weeks ago, I got a call from someone over in Bernice, also in Union Parish. Oh, and that's the Sayers apple tree. Just a day or two ago, on the 25th of March, full flower. Honeybees were all over this tree, so we should see a good fruit set on it this year. And obviously, when it's in fruit, I'm going to go back and get some data on the fruit as well. But strongly fragranced flowers too. That's another reason why I think it's a crab apple. So we'll see. But that tree is just thriving. Whatever that is, it has adapted well to the climate of North Louisiana. Um, and so going back to Bernice, not too many weeks ago, I got a call from someone who said they had located some old apple trees over in Lincoln Parish, just north of Ruston. Would I want to come see them? Of course, yes. And we get to we go meet the homeowners, the property owners, and they have all types of articles about the history of that area. And it turns out there was an apple orchard just north of Ruston back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. In fact, this newspaper article is from the Ruston Daily Leader, August 23rd, 1940. And there was an apple orchard in the Vienna community, just north of Ruston, where they grew Stark's Delicious Red and Stark's Delicious Golden. So that orchard, of course, is long gone, but there are two trees still there that are not those two varieties. The property owner tells me that these two trees are a variety of apple called Rusty Coat. And I'll talk a little bit about that variety name coming up in one of the next slides. But these are the trees. Now, the property owner was born in 1949, and so he tells me that as long as he has been alive, these trees have always been big, mature apple trees. So it's not going to surprise me if we finally determine these trees are over 100 years old. When we were there on the 12th of March, the trees were at pink tip. They were starting to show pink tip, loaded with these flower buds. And according to the property owner, they set fruit every year. And apparently they don't need a pollinator because there aren't any apple trees planted nearby that anyone knows of. So that's awfully interesting. Same thing with the Sayers apple in Union Parish, apparently a self-fertile apple. So Rusty Coat is an interesting name for an apple. It could be one of any several varieties that develop a more or less tanned or brownish exterior. Like I compare it to a Bosc pear that you see in the grocery store. We think of apples as being green or red or yellow or some color like that. These have kind of a brownish russet all over the coating. And Rusty Coat is a local name too, so there are several varieties that that you could locally call a Rusty Coat. Roxbury Russet is actually the oldest apple variety in the United States. It came over with the colonists. There's a North Carolina apple called Keener Seedling, which originated very close to where my dad grew up, and locally they called the Keener Seedling a Rusty Coat. That apple hangs on until November or December. And then several others, Pomme Grise, Sweet Russet, Perry Russet, all of those could be called Rusty Coats. So it's kind of a catch-all phrase for these russeted apple varieties. But anyway, we're just going to watch this one as we go through the season. We'll go back next winter and try to collect scion wood because whatever these things are, um, the only problems I could see these trees having were just age-related problems. No evidence of disease, no evidence of any major pest damage. So again, here's an apple that seems to be perfectly adapted to life in northern Louisiana. So again, kind of going against the paradigm that you can't grow apples in Louisiana. So we'll see how all this works out, and we'll try to get names on these old apples. Well, moving on to watermelons. Last year, about this time, I gave a talk to the Marion Garden Club up in Union Parish, and on apples actually. And after my presentation, a little lady approached me and said, "Hey, I have something you might be interested in." And she proceeded to tell me the story about a now deceased LSU agent who had left her some seeds of a watermelon that she thought had been developed at the Calhoun Research Station. And that caught my attention immediately because I have been asked every season since I've been the extension agent in Ouachita Parish about a watermelon called the Calhoun Sweet. And I was hoping that if these were seeds of the Calhoun Sweet, we would finally be able to get this much asked about watermelon back out into circulation. So a little bit about the Calhoun Station. It was established in 1888. It closed down in 2011, about 10 years ago. And a lot of great research went on at the Calhoun Station. Vegetables, fruit. They had a dairy herd. They had a poultry flock, all kinds of things. And there were 5 watermelons developed at the Calhoun Station. Calhoun Gray is a cross between Calhoun Sweet and Charleston Gray. Calhoun Sweet was a 1951 release, so was developed quite a while ago. Louisiana Queen is a striped melon that was released somewhere around 1976, 1977. I'm not quite sure of that. Red and Sweet was the last watermelon released from the Calhoun Station in 1987. And then Summit, another Black Diamond style melon that was released sometime in the 1970s. So 5 watermelons. And I'm very pleased to report to you that we have located 3 of these 5 watermelons. So we're still looking for Louisiana Queen and Summit. We have found Calhoun Gray, Calhoun Sweet, and Red and Sweet. So we're pretty excited about that. The rest of my presentation is going to focus on the Red and Sweet because that's what these seeds actually turned out to be. But as she was telling me, as this lady was telling me about this at the Marion Garden Club, we set a date for me to come back, and she would pull these seeds out of her freezer, and we would go through them and see what they were. And the seeds were actually contained in this cracker tin. They had been in her freezer all this time. And when you pull the lid off the cracker tin, this is what it looked like in there. So, and that's really exciting because you look in there and think, gosh, there could be anything in there. There were some cantaloupe seeds, a supermarket hybrid, and there were these little paper bags from a pharmacist from a pharmacy, well, Walmart, with the name Red and Sweet written on it. So this was the Red and Sweet watermelon, not the Calhoun Sweet, but the Red and Sweet. And if you'll look at some of the dates here, 2003, this bag actually says 2006. There was another bag that said 2001. So we had watermelon seeds from nearly 20 years ago. And of course, that's the question. That opens up a whole list of questions. But I came back to the office and rifled through the file cabinets and found the original publication of the Red and Sweet Watermelon. Um, Dr. Johnson is now retired, but still down in the Baton Rouge area, and I'm still trying to find out who Lancaster and Young are or were. But that's the cover of the original paper from the Red and Sweet, and that picture really doesn't do the watermelon justice. I'm about to show you some pictures I took. Well, you'll see. So here are the questions. Of course, 20-year-old watermelon seeds. The first thing I asked was, well, how long do watermelon seeds stay viable? And then will they germinate? And then if they do germinate, will they produce a plant? So all these questions, and the only way we're going to find this out is if we try to germinate them. So that's what we did. I took 10 seeds from each year, put them between two layers of wet paper towels, put them in Ziploc bags, and did this on the 28th of February of last year. And within just a few days, on the 5th of March, we noticed that some of the seeds, about half of each year, were germinating. And so we were pretty excited to see that. So there's your answer. Are nearly 20-year-old watermelon seeds still viable? The answer is yes. And so I'll just show you what this looked like as they grew on the 12th of March. Good cotyledons. By the 18th, a good true leaf being put up by that seedling. And then by the 1st of April, beautiful true leaves with starting to vine. So they were very vigorous growers. Now, when we got into May, I said, okay, I'm going to take the most vigorous seedling and grow it somewhere in isolation so we can save the seeds of whatever this thing turns out to be. And so I took one plant out to my apple orchard in southern Ouachita Parish and planted it between a Stayman apple and another apple tree. That was in mid-May. By the 21st of May, it had really started to creep along the ground, and by the 31st of May, there was no slowing this thing down. It very vigorous, and by the middle of June, I don't know if you can see the vine. That's one vine back on that row. And my apple trees are 15 feet apart. So this vine took advantage of the space it had. I can say that. Now that's one plant, and I'll show you what that one plant produced. But it was a very vigorous, very healthy vine. No evidence of disease whatsoever. And then about a month later, July 11th, we harvested the first melon off of it. This was a 30-pounder. We checked the Brix score. The Brix came in at a good solid 12. Very sweet for a watermelon. Of course, this first melon went back to the lady that had given me the seeds, as I had promised. And so I was quite happy to take that to her. But there is a good shot of the flesh. This is a very dark red fleshed watermelon, very thin rind as well, as a lot of these Calhoun melons seem to be. So not melons for long distance shipping, best suited for local markets. Just that thin rind. They split open very easily. So now, what I wanted to do was introduce this melon to some of our local culinary talent. On the left, you see a watermelon, a red and sweet watermelon mango salad with basil. That's actually Ashley Dowdy, who hosts Louisiana Living, where we do our garden segment every Tuesday. That she made that salad. And then one of our other local foodies, Delia Simpson, came up with this wonderful beverage. that has a shot of vodka, seltzer, and one or two other things in it. But I mean, just look at that. How about that on a hot summer day, huh? And then she also wrapped some pieces of the red and sweet with prosciutto and put that on a bed of baby greens. And so just incredible. So I hope our local culinary talent catches on to these local varieties as well. So by the time it was all said and done, we harvested 6 good-sized watermelons off that one vine. The largest one was 46 pounds with a brick score of 12. And then one of the 30-pounders came in with a brick score of 13. So that's a very sweet watermelon. So this thing certainly lives up to its name. I should also point out, let me go back one slide here, that there's this kind of indentation on the blossom end, which is, I don't see that in grocery store watermelons. So I thought that was kind of peculiar too. It's actually mentioned in the paper. So of the 6 largest melons, average weight of 37, almost 38 pounds, and an average brick score of 12.3. The sweetest watermelon is said to be the Bradford watermelon, which usually runs about 14 as far as a brick score goes. So we're getting very close to that. So a very sweet watermelon. And the vine did produce a number of other small ones. They were just as red. They were just as sweet. They just simply weren't as large as the first 6. So quite productive. Now, while we were growing out the red and sweet, I told some of my gardening and farming friends that I would like to find the Calhoun sweet. And they put out their feelers, and sure enough, we were able to locate someone over in Lincoln Parish who said he was growing the Calhoun sweet. We asked if we could come take a look, and he let us come over. At the Calhoun station, the breeders called what would eventually become the Calhoun sweet QX 124. That was the seedling designation for what would eventually become the Calhoun sweet. So the gentleman let us come over to his farm in Lincoln Parish. And sure enough, this is what we found. The Calhoun sweet, which up until now had been basically presumed extinct, is a solid green round melon, was released in 1951. And basically it's just a black diamond melon, excuse me, with a lot of disease resistance bred into it. But this is the one everyone seems to remember. So we did obtain some seeds, and we also went back and purchased some melons from him at the end of the season. And so we're going to take this year to grow this out, and I'm going to show you why with this slide. He was growing the putative Calhoun sweet right beside a row of Jubilees. And watermelons will cross-pollinate very readily. And you can see that some of the melons on the left-hand picture actually look like good crosses of the Calhoun sweet and Jubilee. Some are oblong and dark green with an even darker striping. Some are a little lighter green with still some darker striping. There's a good Jubilee in the back, right at the base of the tree. So we had to go through and select these from these melons, from this batch of melons, the best melons that fit the description of the Calhoun sweet, which, as far as I know, is just a large, round, solid, dark green melon. And so we obtained seeds from those melons, and we're going to grow those out this year also to replenish our seed stocks. In fact, one of our local farms, Compton Farms of Louisiana, will be growing out seedlings of the putative Calhoun sweet. We're going to see what we come up with. We just want to make sure that we don't get some strange cross or and from there we're going to select the melons that best fit the description of the Calhoun sweet. So be very selective. In the back row of these seedlings, those are 5 cups with seedlings of Calhoun Gray, which are, I got those seeds from USDA. The Calhoun Gray is Calhoun Sweet times Charleston Gray, so I'm really looking forward to seeing those. And I'll just select the most vigorous one and grow it out in isolation, just like I did the red and sweet last year. Yep. So they sent me 10 seeds and I started 5 of them. So we're excited about that. Now, while all this was going on, someone messaged me on Facebook and said, well, we have a watermelon in Wynn Parish called Gentry's Gray. Have you ever heard of this? And of course, I had not ever heard of this watermelon. And said, "Tell me about it." So this person in Wynn Parish proceeded to tell me about this watermelon uh, that is pretty specific to one area of Wynn Parish. It's called Gentry's Gray, after the person who evidently bred and sold it. Not an LSU melon, but something just locally done by what seems like just a home gardener. But as you can see, it's a very light green melon, pink flesh. It does have some striping on it, but not, it's just barely noticeable. But with this watermelon, we get white seeds, which I had never seen before in a watermelon. And so when the red and sweet was done out at the orchard, I pulled it out, put in some fertilizer in the soil, and then planted a vine of the Gentry's Gray. And you can tell it's getting to the end of the season. The leaves are starting to get spotted, and cool nights, heavy dews at night. It was obvious that we were approaching the end of the growing season. So, yeah, that's pretty much what the melon looked like. It's just unusual looking to me anyway, to see a very light green melon, pink flesh, and then those white seeds are very noticeable. In fact, I harvested the last Gentry's Gray on Thanksgiving Day, as a matter of fact, and so it was quite productive. If I had given it a longer season, I'm sure it would have produced a lot more melons. So that's kind of a fun one. We're saving those seeds and looking into what this could possibly be. The man Gentry, his name was Lemmy Gentry, and I've been able to trace him back to Georgia. I know he was born in Georgia, so we're still developing kind of a history on this Wynn Parish watermelon. So first I've heard of it. So all this interest in watermelons and vegetable and fruit varieties developed at the Calhoun Station, coupled with the fact we had a well-known seed saver give a presentation at our Master Gardener Seminar last year, in 2019, so 2 years ago, has led to what I am sort of tentatively calling the North Louisiana Seed Preservation Program. And of course, we're placing emphasis on these old LSU varieties. We have managed, this is actually the first thing we found. This is the Calhoun Purple Hull P, released in 1966, and we obtained seeds from USDA, and that's been grown out here in Louisiana. And John Kuykendall also grew it out up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and sent seeds back. So we're building that seed stock up. We now have a few collections to add. Of course, this is the Shirtlift collection that the red and sweet watermelon was in. There's also an okra variety included in this collection. I don't know what it is, other than it's a putative cowhorn variety. So I'll probably be growing that out this year as we move into hot weather. The Kuykendall collection, of course, John Kuykendall was the focus of an LPB documentary he lives and works up in the Smoky Mountains, but every fall for the last 40 years, he has come down to Washington Parish, Louisiana, to attend and volunteer at the Washington Parish Free Fair in Franklinton. And in doing so, he has befriended a lot of the farming families in that region of Louisiana and Mississippi, and has amassed this seed collection of, um, well, just look, for example, these are just the cowpeas, the field peas, that names that if you're not in that family, you've probably never heard of them, like Red Ripper, Polecat. There's one called Paul's Old Gray Pea. Paul was Mr. Selden Lang, who John mentions in that LPB documentary quite a bit. But just look at those names, the unknown pea of Washington Parish, for example. So we'll be growing these out and rebuilding, building up these seed stocks so gardeners and farmers can have access to these things again. Because we still get a lot of questions about these old varieties. Butterbeans, I actually grew out the Reverend Taylor butterbean last year. Very interesting. You open a pod and no two beans have the same color pattern. Real distinctive. So a pole bean that's real interesting, an okra called Dub Jenkins, no doubt the family that grew it for generations. This is the Jones collection. This is from a Mr. Jones down in Wynn Parish. He also had the Gentry's Gray watermelon. His family grew an English pea and still does grow that English pea that he shared seeds with. I'm growing it out right now out at the kitchen garden at the zoo. Real interesting collard green that they say predates the Civil War. And then a field pea called Blue Goose, and a running purple hull pea that his grandparents still grow. So we're quite happy to have the Jones collection. The Sayers collection, the same Sayers that the unknown apple is in. This is the reason why I went up there in the first place on July 31st of last year, was to see this pea they call the Huey P. Long Purple Hull pea. This thing is incredible, very vigorous. And I have jokingly said I think they crossed a field pea with kudzu. And the pods are about a foot long. They turn this brilliant bright purple, and they have anywhere from 18 to 22 peas in the pod. Just huge, massive purple hull pea, and an extremely vigorous vine. He also had an interesting collard green called Uncle Ben's, so I'll be interested to grow that out next year. And of course, he had the apple, so we're still running down this apple. Not necessarily for the seeds, because if we plant the seeds of this apple, we won't get the same variety. So this apple will have to be propagated through grafting, basically by cloning. But the seeds will give us some good rootstocks to hopefully work with, so we can graft onto those rootstocks and perpetuate this apple. And then just finally, the Fraser collection. This is a gentleman in Lincoln Parish. He has this wonderful corn that actually does crop up again down in Wynn Parish. This is called Blue Grain Rogers corn. And a lot of the older farmers remember this corn and remember growing it. Makes a real nice cornmeal, but apparently the cornbread is kind of odd looking just because of all the blue and the multicolored kernels in it. So where he very generously shared seeds for that. So I'm going to be very anxious to grow that out and build that seed stock up. And he also had the Calhoun Purple Hull pea, as a matter of fact. So these things are out there. It's just a matter of going out to find them. I'll have more to say, I hope, about this seed preservation project as we build up the resources. And hopefully we can find some more of these LSU varieties that are presumed lost. They were developed for a reason. They were developed for disease resistance primarily, but they are beautifully suited for life in northern Louisiana. So I still get a lot of questions about these things, and so I think it would be very useful to try and find these things and get them back out into circulation. So, so that's my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to email them in. And thank you for attending today's seminar, and we'll see you later. Have a good day.